Welcome back to the Alphaville podcast, episode 5, where we go through the songs on the upcoming album Eternally Yours, which is played by an orchestra. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about a specific song that I find very fitting for this time because currently we are in Berlin and it is very, very hot. It's, I think, 28 degrees Celsius today. And I think you can already guess what the song is going to be, maybe?
Winter Wonderland?
Yes. No, another guess?
Summer in Berlin.
Summer in Berlin, of course. So the song Summer in Berlin came out in 1984. Do you still remember the summer in Berlin in 1984?
Well, the song is about all summers that I experienced at that early times, between 1976, 1979, 1980. There was some great magic about these summers, and West Berlin, as it was called at that time, because it was just half of the city. The other half belonged to the German Democratic Republic, which was the socialistic part, the Russian-occupied part of Germany. And so West Berlin was right in the middle of East Germany, surrounded by this wall, which was a really deadly thing. People got shot, when they tried to escape into the West. It was called the Iron Curtain. And being in West Berlin meant that you were completely isolated on probably one of the most bizarre and weirdest place you could imagine. The result of politics, circumstances of history, lots of really crazy things. And for me at that time, it was like I was just slammed the door behind me, when I entered West Berlin after I got thrown out of the army. And and I lived there in a complete different universe. And I really have a very, very intense and good positive memories about these summer times in the city, which was actually full of very ugly things, surrounded by a deadly curtain, surrounded by tanks and minefields, searchlights at nights. The stench of the traffic inside West Berlin, the ruins of all these houses that had been destroyed during World War II, that were still all around the city. And although, it was a kind of nice place. It was a place that, we were punks. We were basically, we lived in squatted houses. We lived a life of anarchy in a way during that time, and it was a situation where anything could go, anything was possible. That was actually the time when we invented Alphaville. That was the moment. We didn't know at that time, but it was the starting moment. One of those summers.
What was Alphaville called before it was called Alphaville?
Oh, it had many, many different names.
Can you think of any?
The Dancing Silhouettes was one of the names. Chinchilla Green was another one, and Melody Nelson was one. So it was, there were probably even more, but I can remember. And the last one was Forever Young, actually. So Forever Young seemed to be a great concept for a band with young people.
So before it was the song, it was the band's name? Or was the song already written when you chose it to be your band's name?
No, it was the song was already written, and but we thought it would be a great name also for a band called Forever Young. Thank God we let her. We're choosing Alphaville for the name, because it was also a long-term better concept than Forever Young, as you can plainly see now. And there was. Oh, well, there's also another name that was The Voice of the Dolphin. That was
Oh.
a book that I read at that time. The
Mhm.
title of that book was The Voice of the Dolphin. Um, and yeah, I was very. It was also a name that I liked very much. Probably that was even after it came after Forever Young. So we had Forever Young, and then we had Voice of the Dolphin, and then finally I had this VHS cassette of a copy of Jean-Luc Godard's movie Alphaville,
Mm.
and I was quite fascinated by that movie, and I liked the word Alphaville. And I then suggested that, and then we came up with this name. I mean, while we were in the middle of the pre-production of the album already, the band still had no name,
Wow.
and the people came and said, finally, must make a decision, what is the name of this band now? Alphaville. Okay, it's Alphaville.
It's like when naming a baby. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
No,
out now. You have to
yeah,
name it.
yeah.
Ah. Alphabet. But the Voice of the Dolphin, that's also in a song, though, right?
It's another song, but I mean a song that was inspired by this novel that is Sensations, and the book is about the possibility that men have means to communicate with dolphins, or maybe vice versa. The dolphin have means to communicate with men, and it was a really fascinating idea for me. The first communication between two totally different species, and I was very much into all these kind of things: Timothy Leary, LSD, and the salt water tanks, and there was this other guy, and he did many experiments with dolphins and tried to communicate with them, and I forgot the name now. But anyway, I also read books about this. So this, yeah, these were very moving ideas at the time for me, and we wrote a couple of songs about it. One was Sensations, one was actually Forever Young, and yeah, and another one was for on the second album, that was The Voyager. So yeah, it was that these were the ideas that went through our minds at that time.
And at that time, do you have any like who influenced your career during that time, during the 80s, when you started your musical career?
Well, naturally, there were heroes, like the band Orchestra was in the Dark was a big encouragement for me, because when you're listening to the first album, they were in very much the same situation. They were not good instrumentalists, and the only possibility for them to create music were through machines, and the music sounded like that also. The songs were very simple, just like Alphaville songs in the beginning, and so that was a big encouragement. But we never tried to sound like them. We were always happy that we could sound somehow like us. Although we didn't know exactly how we would sound, it was just like every new song was a kind of experiment, and
Yeah.
and every song was very different from the other song, because there were no straight identity of Alphaville. It was just like a trial and error game all the time.
You once said that no one really played an instrument, right? Or really knew how to play
No,
an
no,
instrument.
no, none of the three of us could play an instrument, and I mean, it was like when we were using keyboards, it was more like typewriting, finding the right key, and then the next one is here, and then there, and then trying it out and repeating, and then okay, ready for record, boop, bop, beep, So
Working
it
a lot
was
with
the music was all in our heads, but it's a big difference, if you have the music in your head and then you realize the music and then you're listening to it. It's a difference between what's in your head and what's the result. And actually, the music for some of the songs, like "Lassie Come Home," for instance, the music that I had in my head was very much what we now did with "Lassie Come Home" on this symphonic album. Much more than what we did then, because that was at the time the only possibility to produce a song. And I think it's a great production. The song as a result is great. But now with this symphonic orchestra, it's just the final realization of how it sounded in my head. When Lassie was the first song that I wrote all on my own, without anybody else. And I actually wrote it for the three of us, so that is the reason that it's such a long intro in the beginning. The first half of this long instrumental intro is Bernard. The second part is Frank, and then the singer starts to sing. That's me, naturally. So "Lassie Come Home" was, it was the three of us, in one song, also as in a symbolic way, Summer in Berlin, summer in Berlin. I mean, it's a song that I wrote for all my 7 children, basically, and but the protagonist in the song that is you. The reason for that is that I wrote the song shortly after your birth, and so you were the first. Yeah. So.
Made it.
And it's simply just like that.